Since we're talking about scoring, there are a couple other items you need to know about stages and normal sleep. So first, let's take a look at our picture here on the left. Okay, this is a pie chart of our total sleep for a night. Okay, remember, an average adult should get about 8 hours of sleep. Of that 8 hours of sleep, about 50% or half of your night will be spent in stage N2 sleep. Okay, wakefulness, once you go to bed, you should spend only about 5% of your total time in bed, total sleep time, awake. Stage 1 should also make up about 5% of sleep. We call stage N1 a transitional stage because you're dozing off from wakefulness into deeper sleep. So stage 1 is really a transitional stage. And then stage N3 makes up anywhere from 3 to 15% of your sleep night. It just depends. And then REM should make up about 20 to 25% of your total sleep time. Okay, so you need to have a good idea of what is normal here. Okay, now when we look at it for a full night of sleep, so now we're looking over here to the right. This is our histogram, and across the bottom axis, I don't have it marked, but right across the bottom here, okay, this would be our time. Okay, so this right here at the end is where the patient would wake up, and right here is when they went to sleep. Okay, so left to right. So you notice when they first go to bed at night, they start off awake, very short amount of time, then they go into stage 1, and then they go into stage 2. And here, this picture has a stage 4. We no longer count a stage 4. Stages 3 and 4 are just counted as stage N3. They used to differentiate, but we don't anymore. So just consider all of this down here as stage N3. And then after they do that, then they go into a short cycle of REM. Okay, so what I want you to take a look at over this time period here on this histogram is, notice there is deep wave sleep, that's going to be our N3 sleep, and then there is dreaming sleep, which is our REM sleep. Now, if we were to draw a line down the middle of the night, okay, and this is not going to be the perfect scale, but if I just draw a line down here and separate the first half of the night from the second half, notice what is the predominant amount or predominant type of sleep in the first half of the night. We're seeing an awful lot of the red dashed lines, which is your N3 sleep or your deep sleep. Now, looking on the second half of the night, what do we see as most dominant? Well, you should see the yellow dashed lines, okay? So REM is most dominant. So in the first half of the night is when our body is repairing the muscles, the tissues, wounds are repairing themselves. Okay, that's what happens in your deep sleep. That's where your body and your muscles get refreshed. Okay, then in the second half of the night, when you're getting the majority of your REM sleep, that is when your brain and your cognition, your ability to think and be rational, make good decisions, that is when that part of your brain is being re-energized or recycled or refreshed. Okay, what's really interesting is the biggest amount of REM period, if you get 8 hours of sleep, is going to be right before you wake up. Now, why is this important? Well, think of college students that they have a high social activity life, and then they're trying to do homework, and then they have to study for a test. And usually, what do they do when they study for a test? Well, they stay up most of the night or a good portion of the night, and they try to cram. So they might get only 4 hours of sleep. Okay, that'd be half of this night. Okay, if they're only getting 4 hours of sleep, they are not rejuvenating that cognition, their ability to think, remember, make good decisions, all of that stuff. That is not, they're not getting that sleep, because that only happens when you, at the very end of your night, when you're getting about 8 hours of sleep, okay, over here. So that's a really important aspect of sleep that I like to share with people, and you as a sleep tech, you should always educate your patients on that as well. That's why we need a good 8 hours. Our sleep is a cycle, and it goes through several cycles throughout the night, but it requires you to go through those cycles in order for you to get the good REM sleep that you need. If you shorten your night, you're not going to get that good REM sleep. Okay? All right. But then again, overall for the entire night, the majority of your entire night is going to be in stage N2. So Second half of your night, that's when you get the most REM. First half of the night, that's when you get the most delta. But for the overnight as a full, the majority of your night is going to be spent in stage N2 sleep. Let's take a look at our next slide here. Okay, so this diagram here, I believe we saw it back in like week 1 or 2 of this quarter. But what it's showing you is down here on the bottom of the chart is the age, and it starts at age 5 and it goes to age 85, okay? And then over here is minutes, and we go to about 600 minutes is what this chart is like. So if we're gonna look at the average, let's say 25-year-old, okay? The average 25-year-old is gonna spend, a very small amount of time in stage N1 sleep. Then they're going to get quite a bit of N2, and then they're going to get a fairly good amount of N3, but not nearly as good as what that 5-year-old got. And then they're going to get a fair amount of REM, comparable to all ages. And then they're going to have what's called wake after sleep onset, meaning they're going to wake up a couple times during the night and then take a little bit of time to fall back asleep. And then this last one is sleep latency, and that's how long it takes for them to fall asleep once they get in bed and turn out your lights. And that is relatively short as well. So why I'm showing you this is because you want to understand how sleep is going to change with age. And we'll touch on this again next quarter a little bit. But until then, there's a few key points you want to know. Number one, as age increases, sleep latency increases. So the older you get, the longer it takes for you to fall asleep. And you can see this when you look at the person who's 85 and compare it to the person who's 35, you see a little bit more time is spent trying to fall asleep. Number two, as we age, our wake after sleep onset also increases. So what this means is as we get older, we spend more time after we've fallen asleep where we wake up and it takes us longer to fall back asleep. We spend more time in that area. And typically what happens is as you get older, you wake up more often, and then it takes you a little bit longer to fall asleep each time. So that's why you have a higher amount of wake after sleep onset. Number three, as age increases, your REM and stage N3 decrease. Now, REM decreases much less than N3, but look at your 85-year-old's N3 sleep and compare that to the 5-year-old's. Now, what's interesting about that is when you're 85, your body is actually starting to decline. You're not growing anymore. I mean, you're not like synapses aren't firing in your brain in creating new brain tissue, and your bones aren't growing and all of that stuff. Whereas in your adolescence, when you're 5 to 15 years old, that's when you're getting the majority amount of N3 sleep, and that's when your body is growing and repairing itself. So that's why at that age we need so much more N3 sleep. Personally, I think the key to increasing a person's lifespan is finding a way to increase the amount of N3 sleep. That's what I think, but that is by far not proven by anyone. That's just my goofy opinion. Okay, lastly, number 4. Notice that stages N1 and N2 remain similar throughout all the ages. But stage 1 does increase a slight amount in the later ages of your life. So N1 and N2, they remain about the same. But then again, when you get older, you do spend a little bit more time there. Okay, so you should be able to identify how much time a person needs to sleep. Okay, what stage of sleep we spend the most amount of time in, what stage of sleep our body rejuvenates itself, and what stage of sleep our brain rejuvenates itself. Okay?